Good day to you and welcome to day 17 of this Understandable program. We're zeroing in on a few character strengths today. In line with the compose, believe, execute methodology that I am applying to this 30 days, we are now approaching the latter part of the middle 10-day section of belief. There are 24 character strengths as characterized and categorized by the VIA Institute on Character, links below. I have chosen to categorize my own set of 3 in line with compose, believe, execute. Character strengths that I have associated with belief include fairness, curiosity, hope, love, honesty, judgment, i.e. critical thinking, humor, and humility. So, the questions, some of my favourite questions that go alongside these strengths are: to what extent is it an accurate description of you? Bear in mind, we all have these strengths, just in different amounts. There are many studies that back this up, so it's pretty much scientific fact that you have this, but the questions are to what extent is it an accurate description of you, and how does it show up in your life? So I'm going to go through the 8 belief-centric strengths and answer those questions for you today. You may do the same also. Fairness. I like to think that is a accurate description of me in how I believe things should be. Though, if I'm totally honest, there could be times when a sense of entitlement creeps into my sphere of existence, and as such, perhaps don't do things with as much humility as I could do. That's one of the latter strengths here. So where does fairness show up in my life? Certainly, I think in social conduct and how I treat people speech-wise, and how I think people should speak to each other. I'm a firm believer in that idea that you can really judge someone's character by how they speak to a waiter or waitress, or indeed a concierge, or somebody doing a job that may be perceived as service related, that if you exhibit courtesy in those moments and speak to, for example, speak to the cleaner the same way that you would speak to the CEO, then that is fair. Curiosity, that's a pretty accurate description of me. I'm absolutely fascinated by existence, by the human condition, hence why this program is called Understandable. It's a relentless attempt to understand myself, yourself, ourselves, why we are, how we are, what it is that's making that noise in the background. I think it's crickets, and then there's some sort of like kookaburra going whoop, whoop, whoop in the background. Curiosity, pretty similar to love of learning, and they show up in my life day in, day out, all the time. Some call it overthinking, I call it curiosity. Hope, very accurate description. I'm always thinking things can get better, and in the days of the past where I may have been campaigning for peace in a time when terrorism was reigning supreme, I always had this hope and belief that peace was possible, and that to say that peace is not possible can only ever be an opinion, because in a realm of infinite potential, all things are indeed possible. Love, pretty accurate description. I'd say I like to embody that where possible, to everyone and everything all the time, not always myself. And self-love, self-compassion is something that we've spoken about a little bit this week. I believe that we are not separate in any way to the loving energy that makes up the life force that creates our heartbeat, and we are our heartbeats, and our heartbeats are a miracle. So love is a very accurate description of me. It shows up in my life day in, day out. Every time I see another human being and make eye contact with them, I get to be in a state of worship simply by encountering people. Honesty, pretty accurate description. I know I'm giving a fairly vague response. They're pretty accurate, yeah. So pretty accurate, very accurate, or not particularly accurate. Honesty, pretty accurate. As a good mentor of mine has said recently, life is as easy as how honest you are. And since hearing that, things have become a bit easier. I just try, as Jordan Peterson says, at least don't lie. That's a start. So it's showing up in my life now in moments like this, where I'm revealing little inner workings to people that I know and love. How else does it show up? It shows up in compliments now. I've turned to pay more compliments and be more sincere Whereas back in the day, by which I mean age 16 to 26, when I was drinking a lot, partying with a bit of a persona in my exhibition of personality, I was more sarcastic than sincere. So honesty shows up in sincerity. Judgment / critical thinking, that again, fairly accurate. Sometimes can fall into the trap of passing judgment on somebody else's action before thinking, hang on, you know, everything, and this is a large part of this idea of the understandable element of this program, is that everything that everyone does is understandable if you knew enough about them and were in their shoes at that point. So that shows up in my life more and more each day, particularly when I engage with this process and have the privilege of interacting with yourself. Humour, largely accurate in terms of representing me. I mean, literally as a comedian / clown. I can't stop making jokes sometimes, and I'm still striking the balance between the sincerity that I talked about earlier, which I'm dead sincere when it comes to talking about all love and that, but can still exhibit defensive, tongue-in-cheek behaviour when I'm expressing stuff from the heart, and make a bit of a joke about it in a way to kind of cover it up in case someone thinks, oh, he's a bit of a wuss, isn't he, talking about love. Humility, if I'm honest, not always the most accurate description of how I have behaved in more recent times. But the real me, like the kind of pretty quiet, young, well, not the real me is not young, is it? But the real me that was young when I was 6 to 8 or 10 years old did let his accomplishments speak for themselves, was, i.e., quite humble. As I've grown older, maybe I have talked more about stuff I've done or plans that I've got or ideas that I have in mind, rather than do the thing and let the accomplishments speak for themselves. So humour is one that I am looking forward to the opportunity to invite more of into my life. And as a great friend of mine in Thailand said very recently, when I asked her what she was thinking, she said, you know, I don't think too much, I just do and be. I was like, oh yeah. And she said, I used to think a lot, talk a lot, but now I just do it. And that was a big lesson learned. So on that topic, I'm going to go and do some things and continue to be very humble and grateful for you and your presence. And I wish you all the very best on day 17. Peace.